Hey everyone, welcome back to the Mermaid Mystics Substack and YouTube channel. We continue Major Arcana Month today with the next card in the Major Arcana, Justice. So if you are learning the tarot, I recommend taking notes. Pause the video now if you need to get pen, paper, or an electronic format, and then I'm going to dive right into the card. So always we're going to start with the imagery. So we see we have a figure here sat between two pillars. In their left hand is a set of balanced scales. In their right, a sword. They've got a crown and there's a veil behind them. So what does this mean? So firstly, with justice, we're going to bring our attention to the scales and the sword. You'll notice that the scales are in this figure's left hand. This is actually important. This is because the left side is often seen across different traditions as the receptive side. So this would be more associated with those white queen energies going back to alchemy of receptivity of emotions and intuition. Here we see with the left hand and the scales being balanced is that we feel that this thing that's going on is right. We have a sense of fairness that we feel. This is balanced by the sword pointing up in the right hand. Think more of the Red King. Think about the logic, think about the mind. That's where we're working with more here. Here, the sword is straight up. It's not wobbly. It's not hidden. The sword of truth is upright. So that means that our mind feels upright with whatever decision or situation is going on here. So what this says in justice is that there is actually a sense of harmony and fairness and integrity that we can feel and we can know. So this is very much like a sense of rightness in the head and the heart. This is really important. This comes to a commonly misunderstood depiction of justice, which is that justice just has to do with legality. Now, certainly, there are times in which the justice card could be representing something going on in the legal system. But we have to remember that this is the Major Arcana. The Major Arcana has to do with these like big mysteries and these big forces in the universe. So a really fantastic thing to learn about the Justice card is that it is actually associated with the Greek goddess Themis. Buckle up, because this is cool. So Themis is a Greek goddess of divine order. Okay, so this is not human decreed law. This is divine. So think about the laws of the universe. So we must expand much beyond legality. And really, we can think about times in which something was legal, but we might have felt deeply unethical. There are lots of examples, past and present, where, yeah, maybe you're like, okay, yeah, it's like legal, but we feel you're like, that ain't right. But here we're seeing that things are right. So we feel that it's right and we know that it's right. And this is important because when we balance those, we are less easily manipulated because we can be clever, we can justify, we can be like, that's not really cool to do, but we can find all the reasons to justify it, right? But in our heart of hearts, we might know it ain't right. We can also ignore our logic and be too led by our emotions and think things or do things that also aren't right. So justice is really powerful because we align with the sense of integrity and we align with the sense of divine harmony. So we have this idea that our head and our heart, they're on the same page and we're doing what's fair and on the highest good of all. Coming back to Themis, this goddess of divine order, is also associated with the Pythia, the priestesses of the Oracle of Delphi. The Oracle of Delphi is an ancient site in Greece that was used for prophecy for, hundreds. I think some people even say like over 1,000 years, but I'm not a historian. So I know for sure like it was used for a really long time. And this is where the Oracle of the Oracle of Delphi with the Pythia priestesses was like, people would come from all over the world, all over Europe. They'd even come from like Africa and Egypt to consult the oracle. So this was a figure who was consulting people in matters of like war, of harvest, of running cities, of political issues. So this was a person with that divine order. You would go to seek spiritual guidance to ensure that what you're doing in your human order is in alignment with your divine order. Super cool, right? So we have the crown with the blue dot does suggest some kind of intuitive action here. This does suggest that in order for us to think right and feel right, there is also the element of spirit at play, connecting to our higher self, connecting to the divine order and harmony of the universe. This is strengthened by the fact that Themis is the daughter of Gaia, Mother Earth. And if you ever study ecosystems, what you'll notice is like when humans don't mess them up, there's often just a really gorgeous sense of harmony and balance that happens. Everything exists for a reason. Everything works together for a reason. One example I like to share, and this is to help you understand the Justice card, is I remember in university taking this environmental biology class, and I was like really nervous because I'm good at arts and not science, but I had to take a science. And this is a great example of facing your fears because it ended up being one of the most important classes I've ever taken in my life. And so we were learning environmental biology. We were looking at renewable and non-renewable resources. We were looking at the importance of long-term studies when it comes to understanding ecosystems and animals and insects and all the works, everything in ecosystem. So they looked at the relationship between the lynx and the hare, like a rabbit. And so when there was a year in which there were lots and lots of rabbits, there was lots of food for the lynx. So the next year, there'd be a higher population of lynx, but a lower population of rabbit. Because there wasn't as much food for the lynx, the next year, the lynx would have a slightly lower population, but the rabbit population would thrive. And we saw this happen over and over and over again. So you have this idea here of like nature, Mother Earth, this is the daughter of Mother Earth, who has this wisdom to share wisdom from spirit and earth so that we can know how to live in such a way that is truly in right relationship, that is truly divine order, that is truly creating harmony. Super cool, right? So much more than just like legality. Another common misconception with justice is that this has to do with punishment. The idea that like punishment is a necessary part of justice is one lens, but I would say this is really more about restorative justice. And the other part that's important here with justice, with this idea of like harmony and divine order and like restoration, moving past punishment, is sometimes people associate justice with the word karma. Let's just understand karma a little bit better, because the way that karma is used, at least where I am, like in this like English I'm speaking in North America, is it's become almost like a bit of a saying, like karma's gonna get you, watch out for karma. Karma is not like a school teacher who's gonna like put you in the corner. The word karma means action. And karma is basically, it is considered like a law of the universe. Like it's like gravity. It doesn't matter if you believe in it or not, it's happening. And it's really the idea that with your thoughts and your words and your actions, think about it as laying down soil and seeds. And just whatever you plant, you'll grow. So it's not so much about reward or punishment as just like a law of the universe. And in justice, we're recognizing this. We're not being good so that we treat the universe as like Santa and you're like, I'm on the nice list. Give me presents, right? We're also not beating ourselves up by assuming because we're human and we err, we're immediately going to be punished, right? In justice, what we do is we want to make sure that our heart and mind are light, that we have this idea of fairness and integrity. We are just really conscious about the soil and the seeds that we're laying down. We're doing it really intentionally. So in justice, it brings us to the next point of justice, which is that this card is often about choices. That is probably one of the strongest things it's showing up for if you get in a reading. It's going to be about choices. So if this is like your situation or your guidance, it's showing you that there might be some big choices to be made, and you need to do it with the utmost integrity. Not because you'll be punished or rewarded, but just the practicality of like you get what you plant, you get what you grow, right? So how do you balance your head and heart to make choices that are both like truthful in all places and then also ideally are in right relationship with the world? So this is really a card of integrity and total honesty. Okay, and then lastly, the other really cool thing about justice is that it is in Smith Rider-Waite and decks based on the Smith Rider-Waite. It is the 11th card. As I said in the Strength card video, in pre-Smith Rider-Waite, or then also the Thoth Tarot by Aleister Crowley and illustrated by Lady Frida Harris, they have Strength as the 11th card and Justice as the 8th card. I really find in my practice, I lean more towards the Smith Rider-Waite, and so that's what I teach. The 11th card is the halfway point in the Major Arcana. So now this also brings us to this idea that, and when you pull this card, this is kind of like a major point in your life. And we can see that there's pillars. Remember, pillars in the tarot are gateways, right? They're doorways, they're passages. So once you can realize the You tap into the wisdom of justice, this idea that like spirit absolutely plays a role in divine order and the highest good of all, right? Like if spirit was really involved, think about some of the conflicts we see all over the earth. If we really truly invited in spirit and listened to our hearts, would half of this painful shit have ever been done? Right? So there is this idea, this divine order and this fairness and this harmony here. When we're leaning into those energies, we do pass through a portal. We have a different level of wisdom, of understanding, of responsibility, of truth and integrity that does take us somewhere very different. Now, the thing with the tarot is you could not listen to this, right? These are readings, but they, in order for them to manifest, they involve we need our involvement. So if we choose to not listen to justice, then we don't go through those pillars. But this is a halfway point. If we go through those pillars, then there's great wisdom, the rest of the major arcana, on the other side. So when you pull this, if this is an obstacle, this could be like the head and heart are not aligned, something isn't fair. If this is your recommended action, I think you see what this is. This is like total honesty, bravery, fairness. And if it's your outcome, then it's going to manifest in a way that's like fair. Maybe it's not liked, but it is going to be fair. Okay, my friends, that is justice. Thank you so much for being here. Stay tuned for the next video, The Hanged Man.